was a terrible dad joke, wasn't it?
All right.
You know what to do if you go to a librarian dating site, right?
What do you do?
You bookmark it.
Oh, nice.
See,
Nice.
see. Well,
Very
welcome
nice.
everybody. This is episode 41. We are officially over the hill as far as episodes of the comic Obsessive. As always, I'm Jason, and I'm joined by
I'm Adam.
welcome, welcome. Thanks to everyone for listening in. We have thousands and thousands of fans out there. Since the last time we recorded, I got to go to San Diego Comic-Con, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. The people were lined up all day to see me, let me tell you. And we will also be talking about Secret Origins issue number 15, where we get to learn about the mystical characters of the Spectre. That's R-E, like it's a British spelling, R-E, and Deadman.
Which one do you want to start with? You want to start with Secret Origins, or am I going to interview you about San Diego Comic-Con?
We can go ahead and dive in to talk about the issue you want, and then if you want, and then we can loop back around to that if that sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. So this is Secret Origins 15. Jason introduced, and this was a Jason pick. So Jason, why this particular issue? It also occurred to me, I think this is the second time we've touched on this title, right? Didn't we do the
Hmm.
first one? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you must be a big Secret Origins fan. Talk to us about it.
Well, I do kind of pick and choose because it's a series where, you get to read about the characters that you like. I was really drawn to this one because I am a big DC Comics fan. I don't know if that's been revealed yet on the podcast, but the moment that the classic DC bullet popped up on the screen at James Gunn's Superman, I felt a shiver. I don't know about you, Adam, but I definitely felt a shiver when I saw that classic DC logo.
It's very cool. Very cool to see it on the big screen.
Yeah. So this issue, in a nutshell, was because of the characters. There's something about Deadman that's really interesting and cool to me, and there's also something about the Spectre, maybe even more so a little bit than Deadman. The character design, the fact that they're kind of mystical, I do like that part of the DC universe that's a little dark, a little mystical and supernatural. I can get with some Justice League Dark by J.M. DeMatteis. I can totally do that. But that was the appeal. And then getting to see the amazing creators on this book was also part of it.
Do you have like a long history with this? Like, was this a childhood issue that you had run across, or was it, just something like you say you wanted to read about them and discovered you like the issue?
This was more of like a, hey, that'd be cool. I don't remember the first time I discovered Dead Man. You and I have talked a little off the air. It was probably the Kelly Jones era.
Yeah,
Probably the Kelly Jones era. Um,
yeah.
but
Every time I envision Dead Man, it's in that Kelly Jones
oh yeah,
extreme kind of grotesque style that was so captivating. But
yeah.
yeah, and I didn't really know much about Dead Man before this, so it was cool to read this.
The Spectre also, like, I remember seeing him in books. I don't think I ever found a standalone issue about him until I was into adulthood, but I remember him sort of appearing now and then in issues, and I was always really drawn to the character, really loved his design as well. And I guess going back to Dead Man, we both have a McFarlane figure on the way from the Superpowers line of Dead Man. And I was reading that his original design was basically a skeleton with muscles, a skeleton with a few muscles added on. So it makes total sense the direction that Kelly Jones went with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see, that was by Andrew Helfer as writer, Kevin McGuire
Hmm.
as penciler, and let's see, this was 87, I think.
Yeah.
So Kevin McGuire was probably into his Justice League work by this point, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I would say so. And 87, 88, 89 is right about the time I started really digging into comics, which also explains why Secret Origins holds a special place in my heart. I also enjoy the Blue Devil issue. I really appreciate the cover that we get here. I appreciate the sort of entryway into the mystical with the graveyard. Um, that alone has some of that appeal. And factoid for you, a little factoid for you, JMD Mateus and Kevin McGuire are reuniting for the Minor
Oh,
Threat series for Dark Horse. So just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there too.
oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a great team. Well, I
yeah.
said Andrew Helfer is writer, Kevin McGuire's
hmm
penciler, Giordano. Am I saying that right? Giordano is
I
inker.
think that's pretty close.
Yeah, I'm from the South. I can't pronounce words over like three syllables. Bob Lappin is letterer. Adrian Roy is colorist, and Robert Greenberger is it says seer. So I would assume that's
Yes.
a little nod to the mystical here. I assume that he was editor.
Yes, yes. I really like his editing, and I've read some of his prose too. I've read some of his work in like the Predator universe, which we were talking about just a little bit ago. This issue where we get to hear about Deadman is called Death Like a Crown. And reading through it, there were a couple of jumps here from like space to space. So that was kind of interesting. On the first page, we get this amazing 16 panels. Am I counting that right? Is my multiplication table correct? 16
Oh
panels?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, amazing look at this assassination attempt that is botched. There's a political assassination that's at the center of this story. So, from this introduction, if you know anything about the history of Deadman, and you might not, it's a little more obscure. He was a character that was killed, which makes sense given the name. He was also a circus performer, and he was killed by a man called the Hook, mysteriously, which is the shooter that we see there in this 16 panel lineup. Really nice panels through the sights. It takes me back to a couple of like Jim Starlin Batman issues that did that sort of panel work there. And then from the 16 panels, we get kind of a almost a splash page as we travel into the League of Assassins. So, behind the scene, the League of Assassins have been orchestrating the demise of this political figure. And so, what we see on that first page is sort of this botched assassination attempt, and the assassin is brought in and reprimanded by, I believe this character is called the Sensei, sort of a Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins vibe going on here. He sits on a throne of stone, which anybody over the age of 30 knows would be just a recipe for hemorrhoids. And then we have, I think that's the first appearance of that word on the show, by the way.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah, we'll have to put
yeah.
that as a little blurb.
That's right.
First appearance.
So then we have the assassin losing a hand, which explains the hook action, explains the hook action. But he's given a chance at redemption. He's sent back in order to assassinate this political leader. I hope no one's like flagging me out there. I promise it's part of the book. And so he is sent back. Meanwhile, um, two mystical figures are sent to the Earth, to the present, to locate this figure, to track him down, and to figure out these next steps of the assassination as it comes to be. And this is where we get to the story of Boston Brand, a name sort of like Peter Parker, sort of like Clark Kent, but Boston Brand. And he literally jumps onto the scene. He's dressed in the classic dead man leotard. He rocks the leotard in a way that I don't think I could. And this is part of his circus performance getup. And he and his love interest in this part, his romantic double Lorna, are having this conversation about how he has a circus act, but nobody's really that interested in what he's doing, so he wants people to see his performance. Meanwhile, the search continues for the next steps in the assassination attempt, so we have a little bit of side A, side B action with the story there. And they discuss, Lorna and Boston, the fact that actually this politician named Kane is going to be returning. So they come up with a plan to introduce the dead man circus performer to the public. And I don't know about their plan. I don't really know that it's a solid plan. It's the kind of plan that would probably get you taken down. So it's no surprise that the dead man becomes a dead man. But he does eventually, but not because of his plan directly. So we get
Yeah,
to see the assassination taking place. There's another attempt, and the Hook is just about to assassinate this leader when in jumps Boston Brand as Dead Man. He decides that the way to become famous is to hop onto the stage of a traveling politician while the politician is in mid speech because, hey, it's the 1980s. I'm assuming that's influenced by Reagan, but that's a little subtext for me. I don't know.
yeah, I could see that. That was what, 6 years before, maybe 7 years before, when there was an attempt on him.
Yep. Yep. And so these two mystical figures happen to come across the story of Boston Brand. They get to see the kind of person that he is, and they're like, "This is the man we've been looking for. This is the guy." And so one of them appears as the sensei to the Hook, transforms himself, appears to be the sensei, but is not, and says, "Hey, actually, you know what? Don't shoot the political leader who happens to be attending the circus because the plan worked. Actually, we take down the trapeze guy. This is new. This is a new development in our assassination plan." So on a page with some more of those lovely through the lens sort of shots, pardon the pun, the dead man, Boston Brand, becomes a dead man. He does. And so he is then transformed, taken into the mystical realms of this green woman who looks a little bit like a Green Lantern, but she's not. And therefore, he then becomes someone who later on Kelly Jones would be given a shot at because he was an underutilized character. And of course, that would launch Kelly Jones in many ways for people to know before he became the lead artist on Batman in the 1990s.
You mentioned maybe possibly being inspired by Reagan, but I noticed that when the assassin is, let's see, I think when the assassin is looking at, um, he's scoping out a place, he sees a warehouse, and I couldn't help but think of the JFK assassination, and so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that warehouse is about as plain as it can be, but it also kind of reminds me of that, just a six-story warehouse, inconvenient range of the. He's not in a motorcade, but he's up there giving a speech, like you say. So I wonder if there was a bit of a allusion to the JFK assassination too, which I don't guess really would have been that far in the past for 1987. Just
No.
yeah, a little over 20 years. But let's see. The 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 character of Deadman, like his design is
Hmm.
very simple. And I love simple designs for characters. I don't, it kind of surprises me that Deadman hasn't become more of a, well-known character because I think that that suit just pops. That red,
Yeah.
that white face, um, very simple, but very striking. That collar, that popped collar as it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And there was some really, I mean, the whole issue is illustrated really well by Kevin McGuire and his inker. But one thing that struck me was like the female faces that you got, like on page three, that bottom panel with the lady in green.
Oh yeah,
Just a very striking face, very very feminine. Um, I like to draw. I don't draw well, but I like to draw, and I've always found female faces tough, probably because as a little boy,
same.
yeah, I grew up drawing chiseled jawed men, so it was
Hmm.
kind of hard to capture that female essence there, and Kevin McGuire really did right there. I mean, that's just a beautiful panel right there. I'm going to go off the beaten path here. You said leotard, and
Yes.
it kind of sparked a memory for me. Like,
Oh, in a leotard?
we won't talk about that here. No,
Okay.
there's a so the question always is, why do they wear tights? Why do all these
Mhm.
superheroes wear tights? And of course, that was maybe not as much of an idea with the MCU and the DCU with, their more kind of tactical gear for their heroes. But you said leotard, and I think if I remember right, the first creators of like, uh the Phantom and Superman and all that, they looked to this French performer who wore these skin tight costumes, and his last
Mhm.
name was Leotard. Is that true? You,
I do know that there was the circus performer strongman sort of like connection for the origin of the superhero costume.
and I feel like the guy who like kind of made it popular to wear those skin tight
Hmm.
suits was named Leotard, and so that's
Yes, indeed.
where it got its name. And it also kind of, since you mentioned that he is a circus performer, it all like fired some synapses in my brain there, and made me remember that. So that's totally off the beaten path. But
No,
I love
it totally works.
I love this uh little storyline here. You don't really get much of Dead Man once he becomes Dead Man. Like he's shot and killed, and then on the next page, that's it. He doesn't go on an
Hmm.
adventure. It's a little bit different from the second story where he goes a little bit more on an adventure, gets a few more answers, a few more, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. I love the design. Um, just a great little story.
Yeah, kind of the pre-credit teaser in a way, kind of the pre-credit teaser, and going on the same path you were on before with the leotard. Uh, Connection of mine, an educator named Scott Honig, was recently talking to me about the new Superman,
Mhm.
and just curious about your opinion of the trunks. Did the trunks work for you?
So at first I thought the suit was, it's a lot different than the Henry Cavill suit. The Henry Cavill suit was, it showed off every muscle and sinew and was padded and all the things.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but this one was a little more clunky. And at first I was like, oh, I don't like that. I want it to be a little bit more Cavill-esque. Uh,
Hmm.
but in regards to the trunks, I think the trunks being on it kind of sold that a little more clunky look for me. I loved it.
Yeah.
I really loved it. And what was it? He said he wanted the trunks on the outside to kind of show the opposite of the grim and gritty. Am I right
Yes.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, evidently in an interview with David Corenswet, he was saying that he kind of envisioned the trunks as being like, maybe this is something you would see on a guy, and here's a guy that's like all powerful, very frightening, which the Cavillverse, the Snyderverse explores a little bit, some of that darker aspect. But if you see a guy who's all powerful, but he's wearing trunks, he's wearing his underwear on the outside of his costume, like maybe he's not so bad. So he
Yeah.
kind of saw it that way as like a disarming, kind of like, hey, I'm just a friendly guy, I'm just an everyman sort of approach.
Yeah. And once I saw the movie itself, like I say, the suit really sold me. I really, really enjoyed that suit.
And I was looking at some of the history, the development, because I enjoy seeing a character represented in film. And Deadman has been featured in animation. He's been
Mhm.
featured in a Franco approach to like a younger or all ages book, which is nice. I really like Franco's cartoonish style. There was apparently a film in development for television at one time, but he would be a great character to see somewhere in a film or TV series. I would like to see the character get a little more attention, a little more love, and there's some possibility there.
And to have such like a traumatic origin, right? The character is not the grim and gritty again, right? Isn't
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
character a little bit more like kind of goofy? Not goofy, but I don't know, just not so serious. Am I wrong
Yeah,
there?
kind of a guy that shows up to help out. Not a big tragic figure. I feel like the Spectre captures a little bit more of that
Yeah.
than Deadman does, and maybe that's part of why people have shied away because since the age of Tim Burton and all of that, we sort of looked at the darker side of superheroes, which I think the new Fantastic Four film probably repositions. I have that Jack Kirby like lighter, kind of bouncy aspect. I feel like sometimes people stray away from that in media, and it's nice to think about movies that celebrate that side of comics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me of our last podcast. No, the podcast before last is no, three podcasts ago. We've kind of been getting through them with
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Avengers, how like when they brought the Avengers back from that, you know, 1 year of Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, they really leaned into the big, colorful, fun aspect of Marvel. And
Yeah.
it's something that, you know, I feel like comics and comic media shouldn't shy away from. Like enjoy it. Enjoy the
Yeah.
big bombastic bright colors and we talked about Superman that leaned into it. That like we already
Hmm.
talked about the
Hmm.
suit, but like I after watching it, I couldn't believe it was as popular as it was with the far out concepts and the science, like the far out science and characters and everything that was in it. I was like, I was kind of surprised to see that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it was kind of a nice breath of fresh air in that way too. It's
Yeah,
hard for me to see something based in comics and not appreciate it on some level, but I did enjoy that part of it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've done a good job with Dead Man here. Great character, great design, maybe underutilized. Maybe we need a fresh take on Dead Man, both in the comic world and in the movie world. I'd love to see Dead Man portrayed in a movie.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know who it would be. I don't know who would be a good Dead Man. Um, I think maybe I'd have to
yeah.
read more of the character to get a sense for that. But anyway, I don't know. The
Perhaps a young Jeff Goldblum. He could have pulled it off.
yeah, yeah, that would have been that would have been great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like Dead Man's suit, it's got a little bit of an open chest going on there. It kind of reminds me of the whole Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park thing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes, yeah. Jeff Goldblum, gotta love him.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about the Spectre. That was
Absolutely.
that was by Roy Thomas. He was a scripter,
Hmm.
but it wasn't just like his own story. It says, let's try that again. It says it's adapted from the stories in More Fun Comics 52 to 54 from 1940 by Jerry Siegel, co-creator of Superman, and Bernard Bailey, somebody I don't know. I don't know
Don't know
anything.
Bernard.
Okay. So Roy Thomas was a scripter and co-adapter. Michael T. Gilbert was the artist and co-adapter. Augustin Moss was letterer. Carl Gafford was colorist. Roy Thomas is back as creative director, and Robert Greenberger is again as the coordinating editor, like he was in the last story.
I was going to retcon that and be like, actually, Bernard Bailey is the co-creator of The Spectre and Our Man.
Oh, Our Man. Okay.
Hmm.
I never had
Yeah.
time for Our Man. Anyway, we can enter
Uh,
like, can you put in a laugh track right there?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I do when I make a joke and no one laughs at it. I absolutely do that. Just in the back of my head or out loud.
I need like an app for when I'm teaching, you know, and I
I
crack a
just pull it
joke.
up on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. That'll work. Well, let's talk about
yeah.
the Spectre, who is a little bit more grim and gritty, but has a
He
very
is.
striking appearance himself. Kind of unusual, I would say. Is he kind of naked except for his trunks and his booties and his gloves and his cape?
More or less. And I'm gonna say I appreciate your use of the word booty there. He's quite a naked character. The nips are out.
Yeah.
Um, I loved the art in this issue, not just because of the large, pale nude guy, but because this is Michael T. Gilbert, who we know
Yeah.
from Mr. Monster, and this had kind of a Sienkiewicz feel to me.
Hmm.
It had
Yeah.
kind of a Dick Tracy comics feel to me.
Hmm.
There's a lot of cool stuff working in this part of the issue. Shall I do a talk through of what happens in the issue?
Yeah, then we'll circle back to some Michael T. Gilbert talk, but I don't have a whole lot on it. But go ahead, let's run through the issue itself or the
Yeah,
story.
so we're introduced with this sort of like Spectre as a large figure intro image, but then we travel back a little bit and we get to see one Jack Corrigan, Detective Corrigan. And this is the Spectre before he becomes the Spectre. Fashionable, blonde, very, very bushy eyebrows and a bow tie, getting ready to attend an event. And on the way, he is led to another place. He's led to a crime which he then intervenes in and stops in quite active action hero style. So this is Jack Corrigan showing that he actually has some heroism that is part of who he is, and it's not just the supernatural that makes him that way. So love the action panel of him diving in again, kind of embellished cartoonish style, kind of a Dick Tracy looking thing, uh, just slapping the mess out of this criminal, and then he is righted in his journey, and we have yet another female double here who plays an important part in the origin story. Um, she catches up with Jack and they continue their date, as it were, and I believe as it were. And on the way, as the story goes, they are intercepted by another criminal who's upset with the crime-fighting actions of Mr. Corrigan and winds up shooting him and putting him in a barrel to fill with concrete, which is not something that you see every day.
No, it's not. Really harkens back to that old 1940s, uh, gangster stories.
Absolutely, and we even see Jack Corrigan, who's not making it out of this in one piece. We see him being filled to the brim above his head with this concrete, and then in a panel that can only be described, in my view, as something that it looks like Jack Davis drew this from the EC comics. We see sort of the hand poking out of this hardened concrete. Can totally see that in like a Crypt Keeper comic or something like that. So things are not going quite as well in the superhero journey. Both Deadman and Spectre pair with that mystical side of the comics. They both meet an end, but the origin goes a little bit differently. So we see some really interesting afterlife experience here. We see Jack being swept up in a red vortex. He's being offered the chance to come back to be an avenging spirit, more or less. And the part that's really a selling point for him on this journey is that he's going to be able to go back and save this lady love of his. He's going to have the chance to go back and save her before she is fridged. Can I say fridged?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he jumps back, he comes back as this figure, uh, turns one of the assailants into a rat with a human face, which is another thing you don't see every day. Another thing you don't see every day. The other
Smoking a
guy,
cigarette
he
too.
ran.
A
Oh
rat
yeah,
smoking a
absolutely.
cigarette too.
Yeah, yeah. Which I'll pause here and say we do not condone smoking, even for rats. I will say that.
It's true.
Uh, yeah, it's true. And so then we see him, the other assailant turned into the guy from the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, drinking out of the wrong cup there. And he bends over. He's mourning the loss of his lady love, but guess what? She's back because he has decided that he's going to take on the mantle of the Spectre. So he's able to save her, able to secure her position. Later on, we see there's another attempt on her life. And to solidify his role as a hero of the afterlife, we have a really interesting kind of like frozen panel situation. It's a little bit matrixy of getting a bullet launched at her. Um, Time is frozen, and he has the opportunity to again affirm his commitment to being the avenging, tall, pale, mostly naked, as Adam pointed out, Spectre. But at least he has a cool green costume, and so he saves this woman again and is therefore the avenging Spectre figure who only shows up as kind of a green cloud in one of the Swamp Thing episodes from HBO Max, the HBO Max app. Um, Another character that hasn't been adapted widely in media, but could be.
Absolutely. I think he would work well on the big screen too. Very fun visual with this character.
Yeah, we might have to keep the cloak closed for many of the scenes, or give him one of those spiffy Justice League gang striped outfits or something like that. But he could work really well. And we do see him engaging in a little bit of interplay, taking down the criminal who attempts to shoot Clarice, is the name of the woman that he's fawning over in this particular issue. And we have some interesting art, some interesting panels here with some effects happening, some glares, some really interesting kind of design of the character, kind of showing him merging through walls larger than reality. Um, and some of those sort of things happening, again, rendered really nicely by artist Michael T. Gilbert.
Yeah, and Michael T. Gilbert did an indie book called Mr. Monster, and it is
Hmm.
just it's a great design for a character, and it's a very fun book. What I've read, I haven't read a ton of it, but what I've read, it's fun. It's I don't even know how you would describe the tone of that book. Not silly, but just fun, like haunted houses and ghost and it's just big big fun, I would say, in that book.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a Monster Comics fan and a superhero fan, and that book kind of combines both of those. And he's a guy that worked in mainstream, he's worked in indie, so you definitely get some of that indie feel. He worked on a book called The Wraith, which is a parody of The Spirit, and so you can kind of see some of that, like play with the seriousness, but it's also silly at the same time. He worked on Elric with P. Craig Russell. Um, and several projects, several things over the years, both in the mainstream market and in the lesser known world.
Well, I have a question that doesn't really relate to the Michael T. Gilbert part. It's on page 5 when
Yeah.
um, our guy here, before he becomes the Spectre, he takes care of the gangsters on the street, and it says, the cops are on the scene now. The other cops, and it says, we'll take over now, Jim. Wayne, about time you and your boys got here to pick up your presents. I just thought that was so odd to to call him Wayne. For a second, I was like, Wayne? Like Thomas Wayne? Like, is this supposed to be? But no, Thomas Wayne was a doctor. He wasn't a cop or anything. I just thought,
Yeah.
I know that's kind of random, but like you say Wayne in a DC comic, there's one Wayne you're thinking about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Gretzky. No, Wayne,
Exactly,
like,
of
yeah.
course.
I just, I just thought it was an odd name to like out of any name that you could choose because it was a little bit like, wait a minute, what? Am I missing something here? Is this like, I wouldn't think it'd be Bruce, but I thought maybe it was like the history of Thomas Wayne was being kind of threaded through there somehow, but I don't think so. I think it was just random.
Yeah, I think there was just something about the name Wayne back in the day.
I guess
Something
so.
about the name Wayne.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm not aware of a Spectre connection in that way. And as you said, Thomas Wayne was a doctor, which accounts for why Bruce could afford so much technology, which subsequently inspired me to want to be a doctor when I was a kid. I wanted to be an
Mm.
MD so I could also be a superhero.
Oh,
Side
yeah.
note there.
Yeah.
It tracks. It
It
tracks.
it does. Let's see what else. Oh, uh, I think my introduction to the Spectre character was, I'm not sure which came first, Zero Hour or
Hmm.
Kingdom Come. Isn't
Oh yeah.
Yeah, isn't the Spectre kind of like a guide for,
Hmm.
I forget his name. Um, he's a preacher, correct? In Kingdom Come, is that right?
I
It's
believe that's right.
been many years. You just said that about like him coming through the wall. And that's like just some Alex Ross imagery in my head of the Spectre floating through the wall and being a guide on that. So that was really my introduction to the character, but I didn't really know anything about the Spectre. I probably knew less about the Spectre than I did Deadman, because I think you're right. I think I had seen Deadman on like a cartoon or something, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. He appears to a guy named Norman in
That's
Kingdom
right.
Come.
Who
Yes.
is Alex Ross's dad? Like the visual is just like,
Nice.
yeah. I saw that maybe in a Wizard magazine or something, but yeah, it
Oh,
showed,
cool, cool.
it was kind of jarring to see Norman standing there, flesh and blood. But I think
Yeah.
it's Alex Ross's dad that he modeled him after.
Oh, that's
Look,
amazing.
look at all the
I'm always
random
interested in
trivia.
those little things. I
Yeah,
know.
random trivia we're getting today on the podcast. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. I thought the illustrations, the art style was very unique. Um, I hadn't run across Michael T. Gilbert except for the Mr. Monster comics. So it was kind of fun to see his art outside of those, see what he did with, different world, different characters.
Yeah. I've seen some of the Elric work that he's done. I've seen a little bit of the Wraith. Some of his stuff is a little hard to come by these days. It's a little bit hard to come by because of the independent nature of it. I've
Hmm.
also seen the Mr. Monster long box hero action figure, but
Mm.
haven't added it to my collection. So that's also out there. And again, talking character design, I mean, really nice design on that character as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that might be like if I had to make a top 10 character design list, he might make it. I mean, Mr. Monster is just an amazing classic design.
We should plan one of those. We should plan an episode that's top 10 superhero fashion design. You get five, I get five.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
We'll plan it during Fashion Week.
during Fashion Week. I have that marked on my calendar. So yeah, I think that's coming up.
Yeah,
But I thought it was fun. I appreciate the recommendation to read. I wouldn't have read this one on my own. Um, but looking through these on the DC app, I think I'll probably look at the Phantom Stranger next, kind of in that same
yeah.
vein of Miss. I don't really know much about the Phantom Stranger either.
Yeah, I've read some of the new 52 stuff with Phantom Stranger, and I have appreciated that part of the character. I don't know about the OG stuff, so I might join you in reading that Secret Origins. But uh, I like the anthology kind of nature of the series. You know how in one issue, which is a pretty short issue, you get two stories, two completely different styles. But then, it makes sense that you would pair these two in this story too. So, it just speaks to kind of the wealth of types of characters and types of stories there are out there.
Yeah. Now, we are
Yes,
entering a new segment of the podcast today where Jason's getting interviewed
that's right.
because
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Jason already told us, but that's a big deal. You got to go to San Diego Comic-Con. Like, I love Heroes Con. I've never been to San Diego. It seems overwhelming. It
Hmm.
seems, uh, well, I think overwhelming just kind of covers it for me. So, first of all, Mr. D Hart,
Yes.
why did you go to San Diego Comic-Con? Were
Well,
you a
I was in
fan? Did you just go as a fan?
I am indeed a fan, so that was definitely part of my travel experience for sure. But I was invited as a panelist because I wrote a book about expressing emanata and critical thinking in comics with NCTE. And so a couple of people that have podcasted with me, Jana Tropper, who's a comics creator and educator, uh, and Kane Lynch, who is also a comics creator and has been in the education space. They invited me along with a scholar named Christian, and we did indeed have a wonderful conversation. Scott McCloud was going to be on my panel, but he got sick and couldn't make it.
Ah,
Um, but we had a nice exchange, like by email and stuff. So that was kind of cool to get in touch with him. But
so
I got to go to actually talk.
yeah. So you went as a professional, which is
Yes.
awesome. Could you tell us again what your book was about?
Yep, it's all about looking at comics closely and critically, developing empathy and critical literacy through comics. Graphic novels is the word that's in the title, but it's all comics focused. I have interviews with comics people in there, and lots of lesson tips if teaching comics is your thing, or if looking at comics closely is your thing.
So, if you don't know, audience, Jason D. Hart is Dr. D. Hart. This is the part
That's
where
true.
it's a little bit of uh, Goodwill Hunting, where I come in and I'm like, my boy's wicked smart, because Dr. D. Hart here writes books about
How do you like them
comics.
apples?
That's right. You're definitely the more Matt Damon, and I'm definitely the more Ben Affleck. I don't
No, no,
really know what
no.
that means.
No, no,
Uh,
no. I learn so much from you all the time. And we're both in the education space.
I think it's awesome that you got invited as a professional to go. That's great. It was like your first time going, and you didn't just like scrape together the money. You were invited to go. That's awesome. That's really cool.
It was definitely cool. I got the little, stand-up table tent kind of thing, but I tell you, it's still surreal. I get experiences like this from time to time, and the next morning rolls around when I'm back home, and I'm like, did that really happen? Did that actually happen? But I have these like souvenirs and pictures, so I guess it did.
How did it compare to your Heroes Con experience in the sense that um, when I kind of, and like I say, I've never been to San Diego, but when you go to Heroes Con, you go down onto the convention floor and that's all the artist alley is there as well as the vendors. And then upstairs you
Mhm.
have the panels. Was it similar or was it like twice as big, or what was the scale compared to Heroes Con? Because Heroes Con, if you don't know, takes up the whole show floor of the Charlotte Convention Center. So
Yeah.
how did it compare?
Square footage, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that the convention floor was bigger. The convention floor was bigger. Uh, Different from Heroes Con in that a lot of your bigger names in comics were kind of pushed to one side. You'd have like the occasional, like there's a McFarlane booth. There's a lot of like the smaller publishers that are spread out. There are a few independent creators that are spread out across the show floor, but then in between you have all of these kind of like media stand-up places. I will say it was overwhelming as far as trying to navigate the space. I got there and tried to walk around the show floor a little bit before I'd eaten a lot, and I had to go get some carbs and try it again because it's very overwhelming, especially in the artist alley part of it, where like you would find your Dan Jurgens, you would find your David Peposes, people like that. Um, there were multiple lines. It was a little hard to tell which line was for what. And that was probably the most congested. But you just kind of like pick somebody to follow across that floor and you walk and you keep walking because if you slow down, you kind of get stepped on a little bit,
Get swept away.
uh, yeah, and there are like strange little waves of like people, like rows of people that just walk through, and you're like, where are those people going? But definitely a lot to see, a lot of media stuff. There was a big stand up for the Fantastic Four film. I mentioned the McFarlane, but there was also a Dark Horse section. I did happen to stop by and see some books from Tom King, so that was kind of fun. And it's nice to see the independent creators that I enjoy that also get attention there as well. So that's the kind of the main show floor, which is sections A through G, and then there's this thing called Hall H.
I've heard of it.
Yes. And Hall H is its own separate thing. You go in a different direction to line up for Hall H. I did try the Hall H experience, but I only stayed in line for a little while and didn't quite have the tenacity to go through because I had a booking to do something else that I knew was a sure thing, and so I wound up going and doing that instead. But I got to bask in the shade of the outside of Hall H for a little while, which was nice in San Diego in July. And then you mentioned some of the panel rooms. So similarly, uh, second, third floor, the upper levels of the convention center, the San Diego Convention Center, are room for panels. You get in line, you wait, they let you in, and there were panels happening throughout the day, off and on. To get there, it was interesting. You walk through like this area where you sign in for badges, and they also sell some food items there, but they also have like autograph signings, so that's where you would go to meet like the celebrity people, the voice actors, and the other actors that appear. So I got to see some voice actors in person that I've talked with online and things like that, which was nice. um, and so I got to hear the Dynamite preview panel for the rest of 25 and 26. Pepos was on that one, David Pepos, and I believe it's Joe Casey. Yeah, Joe Casey
Oh,
was on
cool.
that one. And I also got to hear a talk about comedians and friends of comedians in comics, the Minor Threats lineup of people with Patton Oswalt and JMD Mateus and a couple of those people. Sue Lee was on both panels that I went to.
That's really cool. I've heard that, like, when you're walking around Heroes Con, you have there's a ton of dollar boxes on the floors that you can just sit and dig through and dig and dig it. And then there's like everything from dollar boxes to, Amazing Fancy 15 and stuff like that. But I hear that at
Hmm.
San Diego, it's not, if it's on the floor, it's like slabbed and it's ready to bring in big bucks. Did you get a sense for that? Or, I go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, there's definitely that kind of thing where, I mean, you could easily drop a lot of money on something, but I did see some comics dealers that had some long boxes with pretty reasonable prices.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and they have action figure dealers, so those are your pretty standard prices. You can pay anywhere from $100+ to 20, 10, 30, $40 for an action figure. The only action figure that I got was a autographed McFarlane figure. I did spring for that one, which was somewhere in the 50 range on site, and I thought, that's it's a good souvenir.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's awesome.
I
That's
walked
one.
by. Oh, sorry, go
That's
ahead.
that's just one autograph I'd love to have is a. So McFarlane was the autograph on the box then. I'm like,
Yeah,
McFarlane. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
didn't get to talk to him in person, but there was an autograph system. So, little tip for anybody that wants to go to San Diego and get autographs. Look at the online portal. They have signups there, and they also do a lottery system if you don't get in on the portal, so you still have a chance. I didn't realize that because that just really wasn't why I was going there.
Right.
But if you do go there to get signatures from some of the bigger names, like your Todd McFarlane or like your cast of Outlander, that is something that I can share as a tip. They have an online portal to sign up, and they also do lottery systems for those signups or for the autographs as well.
Much different than Heroes Con.
Yeah,
Much different. It really does feel almost like a California comic show compared to a North Carolina comic show. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's like
Mhm.
much less formal. Like the first time I met Chris Claremont, I don't think he had been to Heroes Con for a long time. He's been going several years in a row. I was the first one to to get his autograph, and he was just at like a little table. They hadn't like pulled out the big guns yet, like off to the side like they do now. He was just sitting at his little table, and I just walked up and got it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Very, very informal.
Yeah, now I will say to go and talk to an artist, there's the very congested artist alley, but
Yeah,
where I found some of my comfort was walking around. And again, you do have to like keep moving and walk, but like Tom King's table, there were just a couple of people lined up there when I stopped by. I was able
really.
to pick up a signed comic from him for like $16,
Wow.
so it wasn't a bank breaker. And then there was one. I love monsters. We were talking about that earlier. There
Hmm.
was a monsters comic, and it just caught my eye. So I walked by. There were price tags on nothing. So I didn't know what anything cost. And I just said, hey, how much are these? And so the guy goes through the spiel, and most of the things on the table were like some kind of limited blah blah edition, blah blah, holographic cover, blah blah for like $100. And then
Yeah.
he points to one stack and he's like, these are $6,
Hmm.
not 600. And I was like, that's my budget. And he was like, I
Yeah.
get it. And so I got one of those. So if
Cool.
you're there to roll out the big bucks and spend $60 and up for autographs, you can do that, or you can do like what I did. And I think the most expensive thing that I purchased was probably the McFarlane figure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Sounds like you had a great experience. That's awesome that you got to go and go as a professional. That's great. Good stuff.
It was a surprise. It was lots of fun to get to do, and I do recommend it. But if you're a comics pure person, if you're really in it for the comics and not the media as well, I'm just going to say again, we're very fortunate to have Heroes Con here, sort of in our backyard. So um, I would go back to San Diego, were I invited. And maybe at some point, budget wise, and if all of that works, but Heroes Con is kind of a go-to for me.
Yeah. I mean, uh, just like you, I feel so fortunate. Heroes is just a couple hours away for us. So that's great though that you had such a positive experience there at your first San Diego Comic Con. That's great.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
um, what else do we have for today? I realize we've been talking quite a while today.
Oh, we have. Well, I think that wraps up, the major pieces. I will say it was nice to see a different part of California. I went to Los Angeles years ago, but it was more of like a working with unhomed people kind of experience with a little tourism thrown in. So, that wasn't like the bright and glitzy trip, although I did get to see the Hollywood sign and things like that. But it's a nice area too. I will say that. It's a nice area.
Nice. Very nice.
Yep.
Well, in terms of where we're headed next, I'm hoping I can get you to read a Marvel 2-in-1. It
I
is
would love to.
it's a team up issue or a team up book for The Thing, which I think is appropriate since Fantastic Four seems to be doing so well. So
Hmm.
we'll pick us a good one for that, and we'll do our talk about that.
Sounds wonderful. Looking forward to reading some Fantastic Four characters in Marvel. You said Marvel 2-in-1?
Yep, Marvel 2-in-1 because
Um,
Spider-Man's was called Marvel Team Up, so
yep,
they had to come up with a different name, I guess.
yep. Looking forward to that. And I guess I'll add in our tagline that we hope everybody out there stays obsessive and stay obsessive about comics. It's a pretty fun obsession that we both enjoyed.
That's right. Stay obsessed.